Laxus has one of the most interesting minds to look at in Fairy Tail. To see him go from attacking and hurting his friends to protecting and risking his life to protect his guild members, Laxus has a full character arc by the end of Fairy Tail and is a very fleshed out character. This video will be talking about the events of Laxus in this show and a look into his mind and what he was thinking during the events. Now, to make this video easier to digest and consume, there will be timestamps for each main part of the video in the description, and of course you can see it on the line. We're going to talk about his backstory, then after that we're going to talk about when the show starts, so the first leading events and scenes we've seen with him, and we're going to talk about what goes on through his mind. Then we're going to go through his exile, so pretty much just the Thunder Palace arc, and then his Retribution, which is the Tenru Island arc at the very end. So we're just gonna basically go over his ideals and who he was through all these events and who he became towards the end. And of course this video contains spoilers, but Fairy Tail is very old and I'm only talking about the beginning of the show all the way up to Tenru Island, because that's pretty much the full Laxus character arc, and he doesn't really change past that. Once Tenru Island happens, he pretty much is the same character throughout the rest of the show. So yeah, let's just get started with the video. Laxus is the son of Ivan and the grandson of Makarov, which ended up giving Laxus a huge ego growing up. He thought that he had the right to become guildmaster and it belonged to him. Then while Laxus was a child, Ivan implanted a lightning dragon lacrima in his eye socket, causing the scar that we all know today, and then also giving him the Lightning Dragon Slayer magic, causing him to become a Generation 2 Dragon Slayer. Later on in Laxus' life, he found out that Makarov kicked his father out of the guild. This enraged Laxus. This incident created his ideology, the reason why he values strength over all else. This is why he became a villain, and after this incident, he started becoming a bit detached from Makarov. This was basically the beginning of why Laxus was such a dick in the beginning of Fairy Tail. The first time that you see Laxus in the show, you can already tell where his character is going. He was being a dick, and then the second time that you see him, he lets Happy steal the S-Class mission because he thought that Natsu and Happy were gonna die on it. With just these two events, the audience immediately assumed that he was more of a villain. Then finally Phantom Lord happened, and then he didn't do anything. He didn't help at all, and then in fact he even said that he would help if Kana stripped and Lucy became his woman. Then he started laughing and left. After this, a lot of people started to hate him, but I was really interested to see where his character was going, because he got mad when people would disrespect Fairy Tail. He had some amount of pride for Fairy Tail. He might not have cared about most people in it, but he had a strong will to carry out the Fairy Tail's name and make it the strongest guild there is. His whole goal was to have the strongest guild, only the strongest of the strong. He basically had the ideology of what Sabretooth has, but when you think about it, at this moment Laxus was one of the strongest in the guild. He was S-Class. Most people in the guild couldn't even stack up against him, excluding people like Gildarts, Makarov, and debatably Erza. Some people argue that Erza was stronger. I don't really think Erza could have beaten Laxus at that very moment. But knowing this, it pissed Laxus off. He wanted everyone in the guild to be as strong as him, so he wanted everyone to be S-Class. And to look around in the guild and see all the weak people, it pissed him off, it angered him. And to be fair, since Fairy Tail is the #1 guild in Fiora, that they should be only accepting the #1 people. That is what the #1 guild should be. But they have so much weak people in their guild that honestly, if you're a really strong wizard, you would probably have that mindset where you would look around and go, why are you guys so weak? You should be stronger. We're in the #1 guild. How are you even in this guild? A lot of people, especially when you play games or apps, and you're in a guild, and if you're in the strongest guild and you're really strong, of course you don't want to accept some really weak level 20 person. You're going to be only accepting the #1 top people. So Laxus' ideology honestly isn't even that bad in the grand scheme of things. It's not until Thunder Palace arc that he actually becomes a villain. Right now he's kind of just a little fuckhead. He's neutral chaos. He fucks with people. He doesn't really help you. He's kind of an asshole, but he hasn't really done anything that wrong yet. Now, this is when everything started to shift. Laxus goes from insulting people to actually attacking the guild. And in this arc, Laxus is the antagonist. Laxus starts his attack on Fairy Tail very cunningly. He turns most of the females into stone, including Erza, Lucy, and Mira, taking out 2 S-class wizards. And since Gildarts and Michigan were not there at the time, there were no S-class wizards to fight Laxus besides Makarov, increasing his chances to win exponentially. He then takes them all hostage, forcing Makarov into a bad situation, because he knows he would never let them get hurt, and Laxus knows that. Laxus then declares a battle royale, also 400 years old, all the dragon slayers are, so he cannot escape either. Gray then loses to Ixlo, and Elfman gets destroyed by Evergreen. This puts Fairy Tail at such a low disadvantage, there looks like there's no way to win this. Laxus then projected himself where Makarov and Natsu are, and then Laxus pretty much just started boasting, making fun of Makarov, saying you're never gonna win, and then Makarov actually gives up and concedes to him. Then Laxus saw this as a win and started laughing, and said you might as well make me leader, and then basically declared that he was going to become guildmaster or he will kill every single one of the stone people. It is at this point that it is announced that Gajiel has been in the building this whole time, and then they have a comedic moment where he was like, yeah, I'll go defeat Laxus. He goes to leave, and he couldn't, and gets hit with the barrier. He's also 400 years old, and he cannot escape. After a while, there was only 2 people left, Gajiel and Natsu, and they couldn't even leave the building, so it was pretty much over. All 4 of the Thunder Legion was still alive, they were bullying, and the entirety of Fairy Tail was defeated. It was looking grim, but then Erza decided to hack her way through. Since her backstory with Jalal, she had an artificial right eye, and apparently since it wasn't only half of her real eyes, that she was able to break out of the stone, and Evergreen's control on her wasn't that strong. So now we have Erza again. She's S-class, she's really strong. Things are starting to look up a little bit. And at the same moment, Michigan showed up. Now we have 2 S-class people fighting Laxus. And then his reaction to this was actually excitement. He was happy that this happened, and he was happy that he got to fight 2 S-class people. And he's so confident that he's gonna win that he's just smirking and having a blast. Erza then leaves the building to find Laxus, and then pretty much immediately finds Evergreen. And we all know that Evergreen's not going to beat Erza. Erza pretty much immediately beat Evergreen. She was not much of a challenge. And now we have all of the girls have now been removed from Stone. And then Laxus gets really pissed at Evergreen. He felt very betrayed at this. He said he put his trust in her, and that there's no place for losers on his guild. Pretty much saying that at this very moment he was so angry that he would have kicked her off his guild. After losing his hostages, he decided to use the Thunder Palace, which takes the entire city under hostage, and he ups the stakes even more. I think it's important to look at what is going on with his character in these moments. His talks with Fried shows his mental state perfectly. Fried's trying to beg him to stop going so far. He took the city under hostage. Fried's saying, why would you do this much? But in Laxus' point of view, he just declared war on Fairy Tail. He took the Fairy Tail people hostage. He knew he was going to get out of this. He's too far gone to go back. So he's committed now. He needs to go into this fight without holding back. He sees Fairy Tail as an enemy now. He sees it as war. And an important look about this is that during this is happening, Laxus is starting to feel a little trapped. He's lashing out at Fried. He's screaming because Evergreen lost. The hostages have been released, and Thunder Palace has now been activated. He's starting to feel a little trapped, and he's now a full-on enemy of everyone. And no one takes that lightly. No one just takes being a complete villain as something light. They start to feel a little trapped. They're a little fidgety. They're trying to get this done with. And he kind of sees this as his birthright. His grandfather is the guildmaster. Since he's the grandson, he sees this as his right to do. He sees this as civil war, and he's doing this as his honor to take position of guildmaster. Because like I said before, he has respect for Fairy Tail. He just doesn't have respect for the people in it. He wants Fairy Tail to be just the best of the best, where if you fail, you're out, just like how Sabretooth did it. This is why villains always have such cool philosophies, because in their eyes they see themselves as protagonists. They don't actually see themselves as villains. Everyone has different kind of point of views and it changes the way you see stuff. But at this point Laxus starts thinking about his past and about Makarov. He thinks back to when he confronts Makarov for kicking out Laxus' father Ivan, and Makarov doubles down. He said because he was evil and he knows vital information about Fairy Tail. But then back in present time, Michigan shows up and he challenges Laxus. And Laxus shows that he knows who Michigan really is, and this really pisses Michigan off. After a while of fighting, Erza and Natsu arrive at the same time. Natsu got out of the barrier thanks to Levi. She dispelled the barrier, and because of Erza showing up, Michigan got nervous and then started covering his face. Laxus saw this as an opportunity and blasted Michigan in the face, shredding his mask and showing his face to Erza. Since Erza saw Michigan's face, he ended up leaving and then left Erza mindfucked. She had no idea what was going on. So Laxus also saw that as an opportunity and blasted her away with lightning also. This of course angered Natsu and he started attacking. Then after a while of fighting, Erza finally regrouped and recouped herself so she was able to fight. She then joins the fight right as Natsu gets knocked out of the fight. Laxus then reveals what the Thunder Palace really does, and this alarms Erza. She then leaves the fight and leaves the rest to Natsu. She goes to pretty much solo the Thunder Palace. She breaks 200 out of the 300 ones by herself, and may I say one of these orbs would knock any normal person out. So she's taking 200 of them on at once. Erza's pretty much a monster. Having the Thunder Palace destroyed, Laxus becomes even more enraged. He then attacks Natsu, but Gajiel saves him. So now he's fighting Natsu and Gajiel. Laxus then reveals that he's actually a Lightning Dragon Slayer and shows how strong he is, but then he starts using Fairy Law, and this is a very important moment. This spell targets anyone that the caster sees as his enemy, and it does insane damage. It is pretty much a legendary move. However, at this time Makarov was sick and they thought he was dying, so Levi ran to tell Laxus to stop fighting and go see his grandfather before he dies. This causes him to stop casting the spell for a brief moment where he looks shook. He doesn't know how to take in this news, and I compare it a lot with Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. When Shifu says that he's always been proud of Tai Lung, you can see the regret on his face, but then the look that he has no way of going back. Then Laxus starts getting happy. He starts seeing Makarov dying as an opportunity to become the Guildmaster. He starts to continue using his Fairy Law. After charging up, he uses it, but no one gets hurt. This shows us Laxus' true feelings, and a good look into his mind to see what he's actually thinking. Laxus doesn't actually see any of them as his enemy, and it's more of him lashing out by feeling overshadowed by his grandfather. This is why Laxus' Retribution Arc seems so satisfying. It's because we know he actually didn't really mean all of it. He didn't see them as weaklings, he didn't see them as enemies, he saw them as allies and guild members, but he kinda just lashed out and wasn't in the right mindset. Finally, Laxus loses to Natsu and Dragneel, and then he gets exiled by Makarov, and you get to see the guilt in his face when he walks away, and then you see the Fairy Tail parade and they show the hand sign that means I'm always watching over you to Laxus. There's tears in his eyes and he walks away. That is the Exile Laxus arc. In this arc, I'll only be talking about when Laxus actually shows up. There's a lot that happens in Tenru Island. So Natsu was fighting Hades, and he was losing to the second Guildmaster pretty much. Then Laxus pops out of nowhere and shocks Hades with lightning. And it's a very cool scene, and in this fight we can see that he's significantly stronger than he used to be. It has been a long time since we've seen him last in this show. He had his complete character arc, and now he is defending and helping the guild. After a while of fighting, Laxus shot out all his lightning for Natsu to eat up to power up, showing that he has gained humility, and he gave up the show to give to Natsu. He showed that he can use teamwork. This is a big step in character analysis. This shows that as a person he's become different and more of a Fairy Tail Guild member. Makarov was hesitant on allowing Laxus back, but Guildarts became a guildmaster for a day and made Laxus a member, and then resigned as guildmaster, so Laxus became a Fairy Tail guild member once again. Laxus was a misunderstood character in the beginning, just lashing out, feeling like he was overshadowed by Makarov. Plus his father was kicked out of the guild, and as a younger person you're not gonna really know why, and Makarov didn't tell him. This then led him to value the strong over the weak. This created his fixation on having the strongest guild in the country. This is all we care about, and it drove him into creating a civil war. This is all that he really thought about. But then he got exiled, and then he learned humility. He shifted his values and ideals on life. He then became way stronger and kind of a monster, to be honest. He is so strong now. He beat the Wizard Saints. He beat the entire Raven's Tail by himself. He pretty much had his full character arc, and he became a complete and fleshed out character towards the end. But hey, tell me if you guys agree. That was the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time I upload.